Remember the Titans was brought up in the first segment of the show. It is the 20th anniversary of the release of this movie.
That's insane. That movie does not feel like it's 20 years old, but Brett and Spyro texted in. He brought that up, and I believe Brett, but he's an Oklahoma fan, so you can only take his words for so far. No, I'm just kidding, Brett. But, yeah, it came out September 23rd, 2000.
Well, I'm telling you, I mean, it was as much of an impact as that movie had on you. I think Brian's song had the same sort of impact upon people of that generation. Clay Henry's with us. Clay, did you see Brian's song when it came out, early 70s?
Yes, I've seen all those sports movies. And Remember the Titans, one of my favorite. I was on the basketball team at Little Rock Central in 1970 that won the state championship. In my 10th grade class, now, obviously Little Rock Central integrated in 57. That was a national story with the National Guard coming in to enforce the integration. But it really wasn't, the sports teams, they didn't really have a heavy black influence until my class came in, my 10th grade class that came in 1970. And I think I was the only white player that made the 10th grade basketball team. Might have been a couple others. Paul Burton was in that group, but we had Fred Allen, Danny McDaniel, Harry Couch. There were in maybe 5 or 6 others, but those three played on the varsity as 10th graders, and we won the state championship. And I guess is what I'm getting at is our bus trips. Little Rock Central, we played Fort Smith Northside. We played at El Dorado. We played at Blytheville. We played – those bus trips were – it was just interesting how it all – the seniors were white in our group, and how it all meshed in the singing on those bus trips. I mean, every once in a while Fred Allen is like, Clay, you don't get to sing. You do not get to sing. Says we're singing Jackson 5, and you're not one of the 5. Yeah. So, it was, that movie brought back so many memories to me, and every time I see it, it takes me back to those bus trips in 1970.
Well, we brought up that movie because I felt like it had the same impact that Brian's song had.
No question.
Obviously, that's the story of Gale Sayers and Brian Piccolo.
Yes.
I had two comparisons for Gale Sayers. One of them to Sandy Koufax for having this incredibly short career, but being so dominant that he's in the Hall of Fame. And the other comparison was, I think, because I never saw Gale Sayers play, just the highlights, but I did see Barry Sanders. Is that an apropos comparison?
Yeah, they're different. I think Gale probably ran with a little more weight to him. Barry was more, the jitterbug, water bug guy. He never ran over, but Gale Sayers could run over you. Not the way Jim Brown did, but I got to cover. I was the beat writer at the Tulsa World and got to cover Barry Sanders. Covered Billy Sims, Heisman Trophy winner, Barry Sanders. Guys, I was over there to do a basketball feature his freshman year. And I was sitting in the stands at Gallagher Iba Arena up in the upper deck waiting for a basketball player to come out to sit with me. It was in preseason. And Barry Sanders walked through the gym, and he had gym shorts on and was carrying his football cleats. Nothing else. And, of course, he had six-pack, perfectly muscled up. Had not really played much yet. They had Thurman Thomas, ahead of him. And there was a basketball laying underneath the goal, and he's barefooted. And he picked up the basketball and then jumped straight up and dunked it with his right hand. No step. I mean, he just jumped straight up. He's 5'10". He's not any taller than that. And, I mean, I looked around. I'm the only one in there. It's like, hey, so, did y'all see? I wanted to tell somebody, did you see that? But I was the only one there. And so wasn't soon after that I saw Pat Jones, at practice, football practice, and I was like, hey, that guy. And he goes, that's Barry Sanders. That's Barry. There he is right there. And the next day he returned to kick off 100 yards. I mean, it just got better from there. But that was the first time I realized who Barry Sanders was and what an incredible athletic talent that there's not been, you can say, well, was he like this? Was he like that? He is Barry Sanders, and there was no one else like him ever. And I don't think there'll ever be anybody like him again. I was watching Felix Jones and Darren McFadden as freshmen, and somebody says, is he like Barry Sanders? No, these guys are good. But Barry Sanders, and I would say Gale Sayers too, are just incredible talents.
We got Clay Henry here with us on Halftime. Clay, we got Razorback football finally getting started this Saturday. And right before we had you on, we were playing some audio from Grant Morgan, really bringing up the aggressiveness of this defense that he feels like this team is going to play with. How do you expect this thing to come out? Because I don't think anybody would argue that Georgia, at least from the eye test of what we know about Georgia, they're a top 5 offense in the SEC. Is that a fair statement, do you think?
I don't know that you can say that this year with the quarterback play that you just don't. I mean, there's so much about quarterback play that makes you a top 5 offense, and what we're going to get out of Georgia from quarterback play is unknown. So I wouldn't classify their offense as being elite. I think what makes their team special over the last few years has been their defense, their special teams play, and incredible detail that they just don't make any mistakes. And their offense with so many new parts and quarterback, and you're talking about breaking in a redshirt freshman quarterback, you just don't know what you're going to get. And so I don't think I don't think you can say that now top 5 in the SEC. That's saying a lot. Yep. I mean, I don't think that they'll be an elite offense when we see them Saturday against Arkansas. They may develop into that because they have talent. But without a spring practice and with limited contact in the fall, nobody's had their full rosters out there for any length of time to be able to have massive scrimmages because of quarantines, and we don't know what they've had, but I'm sure that they're like everybody else. There's 10 to 15 players out, and it reduces your ability to scrimmage. What you're going to get in game 1, I think, is an unknown, and you could be right. They could have that kind of offense, but that's not how I would quantify their team right now.
So okay, we'll go in with that assumption with this next question here. So a relatively unknown offense. We don't know what we'll get with quarterbacks. So how can this defense for the Razorbacks be aggressive, as Grant Morgan was talking about? And how do you think they'll go about being aggressive and hopefully cause some problems for this Bulldog offense?
Well, John Chavis was the blitz master. I mean, that's his reputation. And every time they blitzed, they had a missed assignment. And if you blitz, then you got 1 or 2 less guys in coverage. I mean, that's the whole concept. We're going to get you before you can figure out where the hole is. And they were so ineffective in their blitzes that the quarterback, in other words, they didn't get there. If you blitz, you got to get there. And every time they blitzed, they got blocked. They got all picked up, one-on-one blocking. They didn't have to double team anybody, so they would have 6 or 7 blockers. They'd pick them up, and then they'd burn whatever the opening, whatever the weakest link was, because they had some weak links in the secondary. So young at cornerback for so many years over the last 3 or 4 years. That's one of the changes with this defense is they're not babies at cornerback anymore. They've got some experience and they've got some depth. They're not playing a true freshman at nickel anymore. I mean, people just picked Greg Brooks apart at nickel, true freshman. And he did the best he could. But, I mean, it was over and over that you saw that particular spot get hammered. So, they're at 2 deep all across the board, we think. Haven't seen a lot of practices of late, but we think that so if you're better in the secondary, then you can blitz. You're going to be assignment sound, and that's what we have to watch for. Do they have fewer missed assignments, and can they blitz? And then if you can, and you can get there, then you can be more aggressive. And with 3 safeties, basically playing with 2 nickels, and I'm really anxious to see Jalen Catalon, because everything that I've heard from the last 2 to 3 years, ever since I've known about him, he's the honey badger. He gets to the ball. He causes fumbles. He gets his hands on the ball. He can blitz. He understands the game. He's a former quarterback, and he plays with a great passion and a great intellect. That has been missing for Arkansas defenses, a safety that can impact the game, and also a great quality leader that the team will rally behind. A guy that there are guys that have been solid and said the right things, but they weren't good players. Santos Ramirez was solid, worked hard, but he didn't make plays. And that's empty leadership, guys. And so your leaders, if they don't make plays all at once, they're not effective leaders. So we'll see if the guys that we've seen elected as captains by their teammates, if they're playmakers. And when your leaders are playmakers, then you got something.
I believe what you would call leaders that don't make plays, cheerleaders. There's a huge difference between those two.
Yeah, and I mean and they can be good workers, and they can go to class and do all the things right and have respect of their teammates. But then there's the next level. They got to play the game.
Yeah. Difference between waving the towel and being the one that somebody's waving the towel towards.
Yeah,
all right,
and those guys don't have to say much. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, lead by example. That sounds like that's what Jonathan Marshall's all about.
Oh, no question. That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Clay, appreciate your time, man. Thanks.
Enjoyed it.
Talking about it next
Always
week.
do. Yep.
It's Clay Henry from Hogs Illustrated.